Hi, I'm Riz Reyes and welcome to Landwave Gardens. It's January here in the Pacific Northwest and I want to show you a few plants that look great all winter long. So come and join me and check out the garden. So there's a lot to see here in the winter landscape. I like to leave the seed heads of the sedum, autumn joy, up so I can enjoy them throughout the winter time because they add interest and structure throughout the year. And in the background we've got the leaves of an evergreen iris. This is the Gladwin iris, or Iris photodissima. And right behind it is a red twig dogwood that looks spectacular right now with its bright red stems for the winter time. Now, one of my favorite winter plants here are ornamental grasses, and this happens to be one of my favorites. This is Panicum virgatum, variety called Northwind. So in the summertime, of course, this is green with kind of a bluish cast to it, and in the wintertime, this is beautiful brown with its flowers and incredibly upright form. And these stay up like this all winter long. So you want to keep them up, and then come spring, they'll lose their leaves and you just cut them back to the ground and they'll grow straight up again, virtually indestructible in the garden. Euphorbias are really popular garden plants here, especially for the winter time. This is Euphorbia Glacier Blue, and it's one of the best of the variegated euphorbias out there. And I just love how the water beads up on the foliage. Really a striking plant, and again, looks great all year round, but particularly in the winter time when it's obvious, when there really isn't much else kind of going on in this bed. So everything's kind of died back. I know I need to do a little cleanup here, but this certainly catches my eye. Now this has to be one of my most favorite euphorbias. Again, fully evergreen, but incredibly striking in its appearance throughout the winter time. As you can see, it's starting to flower. This is Euphorbia rigida. You can see the new growth from next year appearing, and the flower is just about to come up. Now, a Pacific Northwest landscape would not be complete without this plant here. This is Mahonia, a variety called Arthur Menzies. And this is a fairly young plant. This will get quite large, but it's January now. It of course has handsome foliage all year round, and come winter you have these bright sprays of yellow flowers that are lightly fragrant and that the hummingbirds absolutely love. So an absolute must for the winter garden. So what tends to happen with a lot of evergreen plants, particularly perennials in the winter, is they turn this beautiful bronzy color, as you can see in this Berginia here. This is Berginia Bressingham ruby, and it gets its name for the beautiful bronzy red color that it gets in the winter time. And of course the pink flowers come spring, but you see this all year round. Now some people hate Berginia. I particularly like it because it's so useful, and the foliage really is quite handsome. If you gotta clean it up a bit, take the pine needles off. It's actually pretty cool. And right next to the Berginia is another evergreen plant that doesn't quite turn a bronze color, but it maintains a beautiful variegated white and green leaf. This is Iris photodissima variegata, and incredibly useful in the landscape. Again, evergreen and just tough as nails. It'll grow just about anywhere. Here's a rare woodland plant here in the winter garden. This is called Beesia. It takes on this beautiful bronzy color in the winter time, and come spring, these leaves will brighten up and turn green, and it'll have sprays of white flowers throughout spring and summer. Completely evergreen, easy to grow in parched shade, relatively moist soil. Just keep the slugs at bay, and they'll thrive in your garden. Well, for the Pacific Northwest at least. Sorry! So for something a little bit more exotic, we've got these hardy plants. Now when you look at these plants, you'd think, oh, these come from Mexico or the desert Southwest. How would they survive in the Pacific Northwest? Believe it or not, these are actually species that thrive. So you can have Apuntias, or prickly pear cactus, such as these. And this one is a spineless species. You can see I can kind of touch it without hurting myself. This is called Apuntia elysiana, and quite rare in the trade, but occasionally you'll find them at the nursery. So if you find one, grab it. It likes full sun and absolute perfect drainage, so give it a really sandy spot in the landscape, and the warm spot, so right up against the wall would be perfect. And the same with the agaves. These are spectacular, but these you got to be really careful of. They are vicious, but incredibly architectural and quite hardy. And the tip with hardy agaves, if you're going to grow them in a cool region, is again to plant them in really well-drained soil. And also, when you plant them, be really careful when you take them out of the pot. You'll probably have to cut this one off. But when you plant it in the landscape, it's a good idea to actually tilt the agave and kind of plant it at a slight angle. So if you live in a pretty wet region like Seattle, water doesn't collect in the center, so you don't risk rotting the center of the plant. So plant it on a tilt and an angle. Again, full sun, warm spot, perfect drainage, and you can actually grow this in your garden. Just be really careful. So we talk about some plants in the wintertime taking on this kind of bronzy red hue during the winter season. This plant is no exception, and this plant is actually quite common, but really effective in the winter landscape. This is a Euonymus fortunei, variety called Emerald and Gold. You can easily find this at any nursery, even at a hardware store like Home Depot or Lowe's. But it takes on this beautiful pink cast to the variegated gold leaves, and looks quite handsome with other plants here. Growing with a yucca in the back, called Bright Edge, and that kind of clover-like plant there is an evergreen shrub from Mexico called Choisya ternata. So a smashing combination in the winter landscape.